Next item is the pledge. Please stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Alder Markham.
Second, Williams.
We have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda, items A through F. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Fowler,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Next item is the audience portion where we ask people to sign in and be recognized. This is where you get to tell us what is on your mind, and we do the listening tonight. No one has signed up. We do encourage people to come and appear before the council. Moving on to item 5, presentation by Mike Peters, CEO of WPPI. I welcome Mr. Peters back to Plymouth Common Council, and welcome to our council chambers.
Mayor, thank you. I appreciate the time on your agenda. My presentation will take about 15 minutes or so. Obviously, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have about WPPI and our relationship that we've had with the city since your membership in 2001. You know, WPPI, one of the issues I want to talk to you about tonight is the need for us to extend our all requirements contract with our members. We last did that in 2002. Plymouth was a member at that time and extended the contract. We're now at a point in time due to a lot of changes in the industry that we need to extend it again, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is and why we need to go through that process. But you know, WPPI has been around since 1980. We were created to allow municipal utilities to band together and become a larger utility to allow us to have economies of scale in power supply. That's allowed us to own assets, large baseload assets, peaking assets that individual members would not be able to do on their own. You know, one thing that we pride ourselves on is we are governed. Just like you're accountable to your citizens, we're accountable to our members. We have a 51-member board of directors. Brian sits on the board on behalf of the city of Plymouth. Plymouth has been active in the leadership of WPPI for a long time. John McKinnon served on our executive committee and was a great contributor when he was here. And we appreciated his willingness to serve and Brian's willingness to serve now on our board of directors. We were created for 3 basic power supply services. Talk a little bit about some of the services that we provide, and then energy policy. You know, WPPI energy member utility rates are extremely competitive because of the economies of scale that we bring to the bargaining table, and we anticipate that that's going to continue for well into the future. Our first owned asset was in 1990. We bought into a baseload coal plant, and we own 20% of that plant still today. It's located in Minnesota. It is the lowest cost baseload resource that we have in our portfolio, and right now it's undergoing an environmental upgrade to comply with Mercury rules. We anticipate that once that environmental upgrade is done later this year, that plant will still run for another 15 to 20 years and will continue to provide a lot of value to WPPI and our membership. Our members signed the first long-term contract in 1989 for 35 years. That allowed us to buy into that power plant. And that was the first time that initially our members signed shorter term contracts. When we started looking at owning assets, we needed a longer term contract in order to finance the asset. When we issue debt, we have to show Wall Street and the bond buyers that we have the revenue from our members' contracts to pay back that debt. And that's really what that all requirements contract is. It's a financing tool that allows us to issue debt. It also allows us to negotiate long-term purchase power agreements with other utilities or independent generators. And we've had a couple of examples where we've been able to negotiate very favorable long-term contracts that help hold down our rates over the long term. We also have gas fire generation as part of our assets. And in 96, 93 and 96, we added the South Fond du Lac units. Again, that was an asset that we had to finance, and that long-term contract allowed us to do that. And then in 2002, we added some more peaking capacity. The last major baseload resource that we had an ownership interest came online in 2010-11 is the Elm Road Generating Station. And again, we financed that over a 30-year time period, and we believe that's going to provide benefits for many years for our member utilities. The couple assets that we have contracts for, Point Beach Nuclear Plant, we stepped into that asset in 2011, and that contract goes out to the years 2033. So really good resource for us. It's clean, zero emission, and with the Clean Power Plan that was issued last Monday, that's actually helps us be in a better position to meet those new EPA regulations long term. Then the last long-term resource that we entered a contract in for was the Nelson Energy Center. This is a brand-new gas-fired power plant that came online this year. Our contract starts in 2017, and it is a 20-year contract. It goes out to 2037. We actually had an offer to do a 25-year contract on this plant at a fixed cost over the 25-year period, at a cost that is lower than our average rate is today. So again, it's an asset that will help us hold down our average power cost. The problem with doing a 25-year contract is the length of contract we had with our members at that time would only be 20 years. And so we're starting to bump up against that term of the agreement that we have with our member utilities. That showed us it was time that we needed to re-examine the length of the contract that we have with our members and ask our members to extend that contract. Another area WPPI has excelled at is renewable energy. And right now we have about 14% energy in our portfolio coming from renewable assets. With the Clean Power Plan that was issued last week, we anticipate that between the years 2020 and 2030, we're going to have to double what we currently have in renewable energy in order to meet the compliance rules under that EPA rule. And that's going to require us to do one of two things: either own renewable assets outright, or if we can get a better price through a long-term contract, we'll do a long-term contract. We don't have a bias towards ownership or a long-term contract. We look at the overall cost to our members and what it does for our average rate. In fact, that Nelson contract, they actually offered us an ownership interest as well as the purchase power agreement. We weighed the pros and cons of both and decided that the long-term contract was a better value for us, less risk. Price was comparable, and so we did the contract. So when we start looking at compliance options for the Clean Power Plan, we'll do the same thing. We'll look at, should we own renewable assets or should we enter into long-term contracts? But in either case, we're going to have the length of contract we have with our members is going to have to at least have another 25 to 30 years in order for us to do either one cost effectively. So another area that we've been very active in is energy policy. It started before WPPI was created. We were actively involved in getting legislation passed to allow municipal utilities to band together to form joint action agencies in the 1970s. In the 1990s, we were heavily involved in utility deregulation. Wisconsin, fortunately, did not go down that path, but I can tell you that that issue pops up every once in a while. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a commentary or a comment in the Milwaukee Journal about customer choice and criticized Wisconsin for not going down that path. So it's an issue that pops up ever so often. We believe it'd be very detrimental to customers, mainly residential customers, and so we've been opposed to that type of a policy change. And then access to transmission was a big policy issue that we've been involved in, and ultimately that led to the creation of American Transmission Company, which we have over $100 million invested in transmission assets through ATC, and it's been a really good asset for us in the form of the investment, but it also has allowed us to get better access to wholesale power supply. A lot of our members throughout these conversations we've had over the last few months on extending the contract, obviously what's the direct benefit to our member utilities besides the cost competitive wholesale power supply, the services that we provide to members, the ability to be involved in the policy issues. We also have a lot of examples where we have direct dollar benefits back to the communities. One area is energy efficiency. WPPI has worked very closely with Plymouth over the years, and we've tallied up the energy savings since 2010, and your customers have saved almost $1.9 million in lower energy bills through energy efficiency programs that your utility offers with the partnership of WPPI. Frank Barth is your ESR. It's another service that we provide directly to our members, so you have access to quality staff that can help you be a stronger municipal utility. And then we are a not-for-profit utility, but at the end of the year, we do have excess margins over what we need to keep in reserves to maintain power plants and to operate the utility, and we look for ways to return those dollars back to members. Last year, we gave back about $250,000 to our member communities in the form of community grants, and then you take those dollars and use them for whatever you believe is most beneficial to your community. You used them for high school scholarships. That seems to be a typical use, and also the redevelopment authority you got involved in. Going forward, we know right now there's a lot of changes in the industry. If you haven't heard about rooftop solar, Tesla batteries, AMI technology, two-way metering technology with customers, these are all changes that are impacting the industry right now and will for a number of years. The Clean Power Plan that was issued last week is going to fundamentally change the way wholesale power suppliers' portfolio is configured. We're studying that rule right now. All total, it's about 6,000 pages from when you look at the rule and all the appendices. We have a gentleman on staff that is literally reading every word of that rule, and we'll be working through that. Yeah, what a great job he has, right?
He's really young.
So, we're lucky to have him. His name's Andy Kellen. He's actually recognized nationally as an expert on the Clean Power Plan. He's sat down with EPA a number of different times. He's worked with APPA on their comments. He's actually led the utility industry in Wisconsin on our comments that we submitted as an industry group. He's an MIT-trained engineer. He's got a fantastic background, but he actually likes doing this kind of stuff, really getting into the details of that rule. And that's going to be very critical for us because we have to really, it's like playing chess with one arm tied behind your back and both eyes covered and trying to figure out what the rules are. And so it's going to be critical that we understand that rule, understand how it applies to WPPI and our membership, and then start working on getting our portfolio in balance so that when that rule is fully applicable in 2030, we're doing it at a lower cost than anybody else. Right now, we know that our emissions on a pounds per megawatt hour is actually lower than any other major utility in the state of Wisconsin. So we think we're in good shape now, but we're still working our way through that 6,000-page rule, and we'll know exactly where we're at probably in the next few months. So we know that, there's a lot of changes in the industry, as I talked about, but we know that we've been very successful over the last 35 years working together. We know that we'll be very successful continuing to work together, and that's led us to a conversation with our members asking them to extend the contract. We are asking our members to extend the contract to the year 2055. That gives us 40 years to continue to do planning. Will probably gives us an effective window of about the next 10 years to look at long-term contracts as well as asset ownership. And if we believe that there are benefits to WPPI's membership to do either one, we'll be in a position to be able to move quickly. That the contract I talked about Nelson earlier on, that they offered us a 25-year contract. We ended up having to take a 20-year contract. We did get an option for an additional 5, but at a slightly higher cost for that additional 5. All of that entire deal came together in 3 months. From the time they approached us to the time we signed that contract, it was about 3 months. And so that's why we can't wait until those deals are on the table in order to extend our contract, because for us to do this contract extensions, it's about an 8 or 9 month process from the time our board and executive committee decided to ask the members to extend the contract to the time that all of the members should take action. It's about a 9-month period. And so we know that we need to be positioned to be able to respond quickly when those kind of opportunities present themselves over the next 5 to 10 years, and that's why we're asking our members to extend the contract. This year is our 35th anniversary, and we are recognizing that at our annual meeting in September. I hope some of you will be able to attend. We're also, we updated, we had a piece of art that we did on our 25th anniversary. We now have added almost a dozen members since then, and so we've updated that. When I first grabbed this, I looked for the cow, and actually it's the City Hall building that showed up for Plymouth on here. So You have that iconic Guernsey cow, and I was looking for that, but ended up getting the city hall in there. So I'll leave this for Brian to take back to the office, but I've appreciated the partnership and the support that we've gotten from Plymouth. I know that the mayor's helped us on legislative conferences, and that's been very helpful. And I've appreciated Brian serving on the board. We hope to get him a little bit more active maybe in the years to come, serving on the executive committee and other areas at WPPI. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about our contract, the industry, or WPPI in general.
First of all, thank you very much for taking the time, Mr. Peters, to come and talk with the council and go through the process, how we got to today. Chair will certainly entertain any questions directly. Alderman Williams, go ahead.
I was able to attend some of your earlier conferences and so forth, and I think you do an excellent job in explaining things. I know I understand a little bit more than what I
I
did
totally
there
understand.
previously, and I know that it's a pretty intense operation going on there, and something I don't want to get into, and I would never accept that position for the gentleman that's going through word by word.
Yeah.
But one thing you mentioned is modifications going on one of your plants. I believe that's a coal-fired plant.
In
What-
Minnesota.
All right, what's your outlook with all the anti-coal regulations coming out now? What do you anticipate with new ones coming online, or?
Yeah, that, really good question. And we've started to look at how that's going to impact. We have two coal plants that we have. Elm Road, that's the new one that came online in 2010 and 11, and then the Boswell plant. Once the environmental upgrades are done at the Boswell plant, it will be environmentally compliant as Elm Road. So they'll be, both meet all the current environmental standards. The way these rules seem to be breaking out is that we're going to have to probably buy some emission credits to offset the greenhouse gas emissions or carbon emissions that have come out of the coal plants. The other opportunity that we'll probably we'll look at in partnership with the other owners of those plants, we own Boswell in partnership with Minnesota Power. We own Elm Road in partnership with WEPCO and MG&E. Another strategy might be simply to run those plants less in certain periods of the year, and most likely in the shoulder months like March, April, and May, and then October, November, September, October, November. That's our peaks are in the summer, and so those baseload plants like that, we'll want to run them 100%, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I envision that probably in 2030 and beyond, you're going to look at baseload. You look at coal differently. You're going to have coal plants. As a matter of fact, when the EPA did a model of their rule, they still showed that coal is probably going to still be about 30% of the energy is still going to come from coal plants. So coal generation is going to be around. We have too much of it in the ground. We have too many coal plants that are part of our system today that you can't just shut them down. It's very difficult to build an ex-coal plant. I think the requirements they've put on for a new coal plant to be built, right now there isn't a technology that exists that you could build a new coal plant. But they are working on carbon capture, and they believe, EPA believes that carbon capture will be the next technology that would allow you to put something on a coal plant to allow it to continue. But that would only apply to a brand new plant. So Boswell and Elm Road, we believe they'll continue to have value through the life of those plants, but they may run differently than what they do today. Today we run them 100%. We try to run them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. In the future, that might be a little different.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Good. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Appreciate you
appreciate it.
taking the time and a nice update, and certainly the partnership that Plymouth Utilities and the City of Plymouth has with WPPI and some of the credits and or grants that we've received recently, and another customer in town had another one just recently too.
Good.
So
Right.
those are very much appreciated, and it's a good direction to go in. So we're well situated, and we're competitive. That's important.
Absolutely. If you have any questions going into your discussions later, the contract extension, just pick up the phone. Brian knows how to get a hold of us very easily, and If you want us to come back, it can be me or somebody else from the office. If you have questions, happy to do that, but the partnership has been good, and we'd like to continue it. So, thank you very much.
Good, thank you, appreciate it. Moving on to item 6, number 14, a resolution celebrating 35 years of municipal joint action for public power utilities. I'll ask Administrator Jurgis to give us a summary, and then we'll have the clerk read the resolution, and then we'll entertain a motion.
Really, not much of a summary. You just heard it from Mike. WPPI provided a template for the resolution, and it's before you, acknowledging our partnership with WPPI. We remain active members, and it's self-explanatory from you. I don't know if you want the clerk to.
I
Read it,
think,
or-
yeah, have the clerk read it, and then we'll entertain a motion.
Whereas for more than 114 years, municipally owned, not-for-profit Plymouth Utilities has provided the city of Plymouth with reliable, affordable electric power, customer-focused hometown service, significant local tax contributions, local jobs, local ownership, and local control of our community's energy future. And whereas not-for-profit, member-owned joint action wholesale power supplier WPPI Energy was formed in 1980 to preserve and enhance the value of public power utilities such as Plymouth Utilities. And whereas together WPPI Energy member communities have built a diverse, flexible, cost-effective, long-term power supply portfolio, an array of more than 75 best-in-class utility and customer programs and services, and a proven track record of energy policy advocacy for the benefit of WPPI Energy member communities and their electric utility customers. Whereas the City of Plymouth has been a member owner of WPPI Energy since 2001, and whereas together the 51 member utilities of WPPI Energy serve more than 200,000 local homes and businesses in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Iowa, and whereas WPPI Energy members enjoy shared strength by pooling their needs and expertise for a reliable, affordable power supply, access to technology, and cost-effective programs and services that would be difficult and expensive for any one community to accomplish alone. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Plymouth, Sheboygan County, Wisconsin, recognizes and celebrates the 35th anniversary of the creation of WPPI Energy, our community's member-owned joint action municipal power supplier, and be it further resolved that the City of Plymouth will continue working to bring the benefits of joint action to local homes and businesses, just as it has since 2001, the year our community became a member owner of WPPI Energy.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution as read.
So moved. Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate. Item 7, there were no items removed from the consent agenda. That item is not needed. Item 8, committee reports and actions. Ordinance number 2, an ordinance annexing territory from the town of Plymouth to the city of Plymouth regarding 2702 Eastern Avenue, owned by Robert and Helen Abholt, and including this property on the city's official zoning map with a temporary designation of B3 Highway Business District as recommended by the Plan Commission on August 6th. I'll ask Attorney Feber for a brief explanation, and then we'll entertain a motion.
As the mayor said, Robert and Helen Abholt submitted a petition for directing unanimous annexation to the city. And what that basically means is that all of the owners of the property are asking for the annexation. This is a single property. It's a residential property. It's at 2702 Eastern Avenue, which is next to, directly to the east of the old Aurora Clinic. It's across from the Pick and Save strip mall. So it's one of the residential properties on the north side of Eastern Avenue there. There are a pocket of properties on the north side of Eastern Avenue that remain in the town, and this is one of them. The Abholds submitted their petition on July 14th, and they amended it on July 28th. And basically what happened was, as part of this process, that there is an approval that comes, or I shouldn't say approval, a recommendation as to whether or not the annexation is in the public interest, and that comes from the Department of Administration. After the request for review was submitted to the department, I got a call calling to my attention that there was a right-of-way remnant that would remain in the town. And so that's the difference between the original petition and the amended petition, is that the amended legal description includes this road right-of-way remnant. And if you look on your map, you can see it in yellow. It's hard to see, but you can see that there's, the pink line is the municipal boundary, and then the yellow is what would be annexed to the city as part of this ordinance adoption. And so that's why there was an amended legal description submitted. We did receive back a recommendation from the Department of Administration that was emailed today. Patty and I have not yet received the hard copy, but they did recommend that the annexation is in the public interest. And so we've finalized the ordinance to include that language, finding that it's in the public interest, and also including the MBR number, which is how they track these. And this has been through the Plan Commission, which is recommending a temporary zoning designation of B3. When you go through the annexation process, you get to temporarily designate zoning. You will see this come back. If this is approved tonight, you will see the rezoning come through at the next council meeting, August 25th, after the public hearing and the other requirements necessary for a rezoning. So even though this is a residential property, the surrounding properties are zoned B3, which is business highway. Residential use is one of the allowable uses in B3, so we're not creating any issues there with an incompatible use. The Abholds, as part of this process, have agreed to repay the city for professional fees related to the annexation. There will also be some costs related to recording the annexation ordinance with the county, which the Abholds would be responsible for in the event that the council approves the annexation ordinance. And lastly, I would just point out that as part of this, there is an agreement that the city pay the property taxes to the town for a period of 5 years, the town's portion of the property taxes. And I know Patty's done the calculations. I believe the number is about $450, like $97 per year is what the city would pay to the town for a period of 5 years. And then there would no longer be payments required. So that's it in a nutshell, but certainly I'm happy to answer any questions about the annexation.
Thank you, Clerk Perbity. Administrator Urigas.
Clerk Huberty,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Attorney Fever.
Attorney Fever, my apology.
I'm not sure if this was stated, maybe I missed it, but the reason for the annexation is basically they want to connect our water and sewer utilities. And so that's the primary reason, really the only reason. Just so you're wondering why now, that's the reason.
Okay, thank you. As mentioned, the Plan Commission did recommend approval on this on August 6th, last Thursday. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2 as written.
So move, Alderman Nelson. Second, Hildebrand.
We have a first and a second. Any additional questions or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Ernstler,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Sedlacki.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item B, approve extraterritorial certified survey map for Bill Stipe Machine, N5718, County Trunk. This was also recommended by the Plan Commission on August 6th. The chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
So moved to pass the certified map. Second, Alder Markham.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Nelson.
I have to recuse myself on this vote because I'm the realtor involved in this transaction. Basically, the division is so that I think it's Valley Transport can build a building out there for their vehicles, and that's, I guess, basically it. Pretty simple.
Thank you. Any questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Williams?
Yes.
Nelson? Just
Recuse.
recuse or is it abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain. Fernsler?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Sedlacek? Markham?
Motion carried. Thank you. Item C, approve request to fill Department of Public Works labor position due to retirement. This was recommended by the Finance Committee earlier this evening on August 11th. And item D, approve request to fill Police Department Patrol Officer position due to upcoming resignation. This was also discussed and approved for a recommendation tonight at the Finance Committee. The chair will allow discussion on both of these items at the same time as they are somewhat related and current with the Finance Committee this evening. With that, I'll ask Administrator Jurgis to give us a brief summary on each, and then we'll entertain a motion.
There is a memo in the packet, but basically we had a retirement in Public Works in spring. We didn't come forward right away to fill the position, partly because of seasonal positions that could help out with the parks and so forth during those months. We're looking to fill the position before winter and have them do some training on the snowplow. And so that's why we're asking to come forward and begin that process now. And then the second one, an existing patrol officer took a position with a different department, and so we're looking to fill that position as well.
Thank you. The chair will allow a motion on both items at once if there's no disagreement with the council members to handle them separately. We can handle them together. And I would ask Alder Markham to entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the vacancy in the Department of Public Works for the labor position, as well as the opening that will be upcoming in the Police Department for patrol officer.
Second, Williams.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Markham.
Just a clarification, to tack on what Brian said, it's important for the Public Works to have this position because there is a tightness on snowplow drivers, so we do need somebody that's qualified to do that, but we would be potentially short people to drive snowplows if we didn't get this position filled.
That's correct.
Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mayor does.
Markham?
Yes.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
Fernsler?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9, new business. Approve application for Class A liquor license for cider only from Quick Trip, 2480 Eastern Avenue. This was approved by the clerk's office and the police department. I'll ask Clerk Huberty to give us a brief summary and tell us what a cider license is.
Well, with the passing of the recent state budget, one of the things that became law under Act 55 was the option to have a Class A liquor, but cider only. Cider is defined in the statutes as any alcohol beverage that is obtained from the fermentation of the juice of apples or pears, and that contains not less than 5% alcohol by volume and not more than 7% alcohol by volume. Cider includes flavored, sparkling, and carbonated cider. So the other qualifications for this license is that you must already have a Class A beer license, and there is no fee. The state said there is not a fee other than we can charge the $18 for the publication, which was done. And that, issuing this, it means they can only sell cider. This is not, even though it's called a Class A liquor, but it's followed by cider-only designation. They have to call it liquor, but it does not allow them to sell any hard liquor other than the cider. So, Quick Trip was first out of the gate. Soon after this became law, I had this, on my desk within a week or so. And I'm sure once the word gets out, we'll probably have every Class A in town, applying for that, because it seems to be a popular beverage.
And since they have to have the beer license already, there's no limit on beer licenses in the
Correct.
city. So it would surmise that a cider only
Right.
would also have no limit.
And this is a Class A, which is, you take it away, and it's not like a bar. It's Class A stands for away. You
Correct.
purchase it at retail and you take it away and
Good,
sell, consume it.
good explanation. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved to approve the license. Second, Alder Markham.
We have a first and a second to approve the cider-only license as requested. Any additional questions? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Williams,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item B, approve discharge.
I'm sorry. Can I just make a comment?
Yes,
on the
go
last-
ahead.
Real quickly, is that, this isn't in our ordinance now for the cider only. It doesn't stop us from approving it. But when we do the amendment, and update to our ordinance, we're gonna include that language in our ordinance, but underneath state law, we're required, unless there's a good reason, we're basically required to,
That's a good comment.
just so you know,
Certainly one of the latest changes
Yeah.
coming out of the
So-
policy review.
yeah, so that'll be incorporated into the amendment.
Good comment,
Our
thank you.
ordinance adopts state statutes, so that's automatically included.
Good. Item B, approve discharge of black powder cannon and muskets under City of Plymouth Municipal Code, Section 11-2-1, paren E, at First Congregation Church, 1407 South Highway 67, for a Civil War weapons demonstration on August 16th and 17th from 1 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. Chief Toshik, you want to give us a summary on that?
Sure. The police department received a call from the church several weeks ago informing us that they were going to have an event where they would be discharging a cannon and some black powder muskets. Looking at our ordinance, part of our ordinance in the city prohibits the discharge of firearms. I had a conversation with our city attorney, and it was her opinion that the cannon should be approved, and also we looked at, we might as well have the muskets also approved, and there's a portion of the ordinance that allows the council to approve this type of discharge of a weapon at these events. So, also tonight present is the pastor from the church, Reverend Bill Rischel, is here if you have any specific questions.
I guess I would thank you for coming, Pastor. It's certainly interesting. I can't remember one of these in my time on the council. And what's your occasion, if I might be so forward as to say you're having a cannon?
Well, in 1855, a group of 11 people, New York Congregationalists, came here to this area and named this place Plymouth, after Plymouth Rock, which of course was the place where the Puritans first step off. So we are 160 years old this year. And part of that, that journey was that the church didn't actually have a building until the Civil War. And then they built this, that at Main and Pleasant Streets up on top of the hill, because they wanted to go back to the original piece that when they stepped off at Plymouth Rock, they came to make it a city upon a hill. And so these Congregationalists actually went up Nut Hill to place their church on. Now we've since moved from there over to Highway 67. But we have 6.3 acres. We are going to have Civil War enactors on camped in several different areas of that. You know, you got to keep the Confederates away from the Union reenactors. But it's also going to be an educational event. We're going to have games for the kids from the 1860s and some real inventive individuals. We're going to have women. The women's group is going to be showing stitching, tatting, and crocheting in another area, and what the patterns were, and the comforters that they made. So that'll be in another area of the piece. We're going to have an individual who is going to show medical instruments that doctors used in the 1860s in another section, and plus we're going to have an ice cream social on all of that. Because we have reenactors coming from really all over the state to be here, they're going to be bringing their equipment. They're going to be bringing their equipment in one cannon, Civil War actually cannon that they're going to be bringing in, and they'll be firing that off, if you give us permission, at 2 and 4. At 1 and 3 o'clock, they're going to do close order marching with the individuals, and then discharge their muskets at 1 and 3. So every hour between 1 and 4, on the hour, there will be some sort of noise. We're going to be pointing everything to the north of us, which is Master Gallery's piece. Not that we don't like Master's Gallery, but because that area behind Master's Gallery doesn't have anybody inhabiting it, and it'll lessen. We won't be pointing it, towards the city at all during those particular times. All these reenactors are real professionals, and they do this. We've taken precautions to make sure that if the cannon is approved and the muskets are approved, that there are areas that are roped off or sectioned off so people can't get in front of that beforehand, and we have people there who will make sure that happens. And so we've taken the precautions for that.
Good. Sounds like an
Any other
interesting celebration.
questions?
Alderman Williams.
To the chief, for my own edification, you mentioned that the muskets and the cannon would be approved. What's that process? Who does that?
To approve this tonight, the council.
No, okay, when you're saying the muskets and stuff, okay.
That's
I thought there was gonna be some physical examination of the muskets or the cannon,
Just
okay.
approval here tonight.
From the council then.
Anything, their own inspections, they will have to do themselves. We, the police department, won't inspect them or anything like that.
All right. Well, these, since they're reenactors and I've seen them in the past, I know that they will do an excellent job and is safe. So, thank you.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Alder Markham.
And second, Alder Williams.
We have a first and a second to approve the discharge of black powder cannon and muskets as indicated at the First Congregational celebration of 160 years on August 16th and 17th from 1 to 4. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Pastor, for coming in and filling us in. Moving on to item C, announce Mullet River Corridor public, announce Mullet River Corridor Plan Public Information Meeting. Get my eyes back in focus. And open house on Wednesday, August 19th, beginning at 5 o'clock p.m. with a formal presentation at 5:30 p.m. at the Plymouth Utility meeting room, which you can enter off of the main entrance to the Plymouth Utilities. And Administrator Yergis, you want to give us a brief comment on what will be presented that night?
Well, it will be the main design options for the corridor, and for the public's information, you can also visit City Hall and the City Clerk Treasurer's office and see those design concept plans. But all of the Common Council should have previously received draft copies of those versions, and they include I would call a redevelopment plan for Stair Park, as well as options of keeping the dam, and also an option with the dam removed and expanding the trail network of the city. And then there's also a graphic design of what a levee potentially would look like if we built a levee in the downtown. And then there's also a short-term and long-term plan map for finishing out the bicycle and pedestrian trails throughout the entire city. So those are the elements that MSA will be reviewing and seeking public input on.
Good, thank you very much.
And, I should say, also, I believe if you go to the news section on the city website, I believe that information is always also out there as well.
Good. Look forward to seeing a lot of people there and see what's going on with the Mullet River Corridor study. Moving on, item D. Chair hereby announces a public hearing to be held before the City of Plymouth Common Council on Tuesday, August 25, 2015 at 8 o'clock p.m. in room 302 at City Hall, 128 Smith Street, Plymouth, Wisconsin, regarding the rezoning of 2702 Eastern Avenue from temporary zoning classification of B3 Highway Business District to permanent zoning classification of B3 Highway Business District. Moving on, the chair entertains a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 per N1 per NG, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning. Let the record show Common Council is now back in open session. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding property at 925 Eastern Avenue. The chair will entertain a motion. Alderman Zlachek.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to authorize Attorney Fieber to, after September 6th, to pursue a court order to raise or repair the property at 925 Eastern Avenue.
Second, Alder Markham.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion or clarification? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Ballhorn.
Motion carried. Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?